This is John Black, Super Chemist. I think this is part 11. Biggest trick of gender theory. But anyway, so back to I embraced victim ideology and it destroyed me. Okay. I just wanted a month of her treating me like a king, right? She never even tried for an hour. Not a minute. Not a second. Her thing was, I said I was sorry. But she had, you know, she kept saying she was broken up, but she wasn't. I had to catch her several times, and then and I had to find more and more stuff out of what happened until it progressed to she's pregnant to another man, uh, and it starts me out being normal, right? Just yelling at her, crying most times, and saying, "Why are you doing this to me? Like, what did I do to you? Why are you acting like this is insane? I've known you for 2 years. You never acted insane." uh, but yeah, she couldn't do it, and so she forced me into that. But my victimology, right, started really when I was young. And see, and this one, it's because I had a single mother. Yeah, yeah, yeah. She feminized me and blah blah blah. But my dad played a big role in this because he was so evil as a parent, right? He felt, I don't know, he felt like maybe he had to make it up to me or whatever, because he would give me money, right? He would, I'd have no accountability for anything, okay? I remember one time when I was 10 years old, right? I, 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 I stole a wallet from like a Kmart's or whatever, shoplifted, and so they caught me or whatever. But he came down with like a bunch of attorneys, man, and we left. And I wasn't a bad kid. Like when I was under 16 or whatever, I didn't really do anything bad. You know what I mean? I got in fights when I was younger, but then I remember. Okay, like here, then I'm like say 15 or whatever, say 14 or whatever I was. I got a paper route, so I'm making $20 an hour. I mean, $20 a week, plus probably tips. You know what I mean? So I'm making like probably 20, 28 a week or whatever, right? And so I quit within like, I don't know, weeks, man, because maybe it was a couple months. But anyways, he started giving me matching that money. You know what I mean? 20 to 20, right? And so now I'm making 40, right? But this is where the victim, see the welfare. See, my life story kind of, getting into the victimology kind of parallels black people, except I wasn't poor and no one was racist against me. But it really, it was just like the welfare system to the black people. You know what I mean? He gave me $20. Hmm. Why do I have to go work? I was making $20 working. Well, I could not work and get that and still get that $20. You know what I mean? So I quit, and he kept giving me the $20, right? Then say 2 years later or whatever, when I get my car or whatever, he gives me a car, and I kept getting speeding tickets, man. I kept getting speeding tickets, man. Like every couple months, I'm getting a speeding ticket. But say every 6 months or 5 months or whatever it was, because I had enough time to pay it off or whatever. So, anyways, so I'd get like this $80, $100 speeding ticket, right? So what he would do is he'd give me a 20. He'd say, "Well, I'll give you an extra 20 a week, since you got that fine for speeding." Now I'm making $40 a week, man. You know what I mean? And then I get another ticket. He does it. He says, "Well, I'll give you another 20 a week, so you can pay off this next fine that you got." And then I end up, getting 100 a week or 120 a week or whatever it was. I, he kind of taught me to one, have no accountability. You know what I mean? No accountability. I actually was like rewarded when I did something that was screwed up, man. I was literally rewarded. I'm just giving you some examples. So that was my life growing up. I remember one time because I started breaking into places, like just to school, basically where I was, because we lived right next to the school. Literally, it was one house and then the school. So we'd go break in, and you got the stereo in there, and you got pop in the refrigerator, and you put a stereo on the speakers or whatever. They had a swimming pool. We'd be hanging out. We played catchers in there and stuff like that, man. But so that was the first time I started stealing, man. I stole a computer, and my dad found it, and of course we just ignored it. We just pretended. We just pretended nothing. No accountability. No accountability. All right. Then when I get to, I'm saying my first wife, or we actually never got married, but I call her my first wife. She had the one kid, right? And of course she just kept cheating on me. She stopped for a while, you know what I mean? But cheaters gotta cheat, right? And my self-esteem was so low from having these crappy parents, right? And one of them being evil, beyond just not, at least my mother, she maintained me, she fed me, she, you know what I mean? She disciplined me when I was bad. She, you know what I mean? She clothed me and made my food, she maintained me, but she did a horrible job as a mother. Horrible, because that's what these single mothers do. They only maintain the child. That's it. And then they just demonize the male traits, demonize the female traits, and try to get us ever to be non-binary. But yeah, so now she has one kid. I don't want to marry her, and now I've given up, man. At this point, I've just been used for my money my entire life. I'm like, screw this, man. I'm just not going to try. If I don't have any money, you can't hurt me. You can't use me for my money if I don't have any, right? Yeah, that was a big mistake. Yeah, because I had so much potential. Like, my brain is like, I could have done anything, literally anything. But so I just gave up, and now and then she got on the welfare, right? Because I wouldn't work. I was like, I'm not going to do anything. I didn't get my month. You didn't treat me like a king for a month. You didn't even try for a second. You've done nothing other than say I'm sorry. Other than those words, which are meaningless at this point, because she dragged it on for 6 months with this, trying to break up with him and then finding all this crap out. And then every, what's funny is every week for like 6 months or something out of this year, like whatever, she would go down to her mother's Friday to Sunday. But every week she would tell me, yes, I'm going to do that month thing for you. She'd come back, I'd be like, what? I don't understand. You just said you were going to do the month thing. Why did you go to your mother's? Why do you whatever? And then each week I would progressively get worse and worse and worse till I was a monster. But before a certain point, for like the first 6 months, I'm like, what? What? Why are you doing this? The answer was always, I don't know. I'm just a bad person. I just don't know. I don't know. But once it progressed, where I'm shaking her, whatever, or punching the walls, now it's, oh, I'm doing this because you punching all the holes in the wall, that's why I'm doing it. But this is 6 months later, like, wow, like, yeah, and keep in mind, this whole time I'm telling her, I am losing my mind here. You can see I'm gradually going insane. You need to leave me. I don't know why she didn't leave. I know I did because I was just crazy at that point, you know what I mean? So I didn't want to work. And you know, since I was so smart, you know, I went to a private school in third grade, right? This is another contributor. I went to a private school in third grade. They didn't have any teachers. You had a little flag and you put it in a little hole by your desk if you needed help. But other than that, you just taught yourself. So I'm in third grade. I'm doing 8th grade math, 6th grade, 7th grade of everything. You know what I mean? 8th grade, and I'm just going through these booklets like one after the other. You know what I mean? You go through the booklet, you hand it to her. You know, she answers all the questions, and then they give you the test or whatever, and then you just move on to the next booklet. Then once you go through so many booklets, you go to the next grade. But when I went back to the public school, yeah, they just put me back into, you know, whatever grade it was, 4th grade or 5th, you know. They just put me back. They just put me back in the grade, and you know, they didn't give me any advancement. Like, you know what I mean? So you know, algebra, I didn't take it till 8th grade or 9th grade or whatever you take it. I don't know when you take algebra, but I didn't take it till then, and yet I already learned algebra in 3rd grade. You know what I mean? So what do you think my life was like? I didn't have to do nothing, man. You know what I mean? I didn't have to do any homework. I didn't have to do any studying. I didn't have to listen to the teacher in the class. I didn't have to do anything. I mean, till high school, I didn't. And even math, like I used to sleep in math class even when I didn't know it. Like when I got into the 10th or whatever, because I would just learn it during the test. You know. You know what I mean? I would teach it to myself during the test because I would just use common sense on the answers, and then just figure out what the equation is to get that. Like, you know what I mean? So I was always just like that kid that was like, well, as long as I get a B, hey, I ain't gonna do nothing. I'm not gonna try in any way, shape, or form, man. You know, I don't care. You know. And then 10th grade, I met this girl, right? And I stopped going to classes, you know what I mean? And then 12th grade, I had 7 full classes. I mean, I didn't have any study halls. I didn't have any study halls ever. You know what I mean? I had actual, like, advanced physics, you know, chemistry, and, you know, like, trigonometry or whatever, you know what I mean? And I went to, in 12th grade, I took one test. I took 7 tests. I had 7 classes. Out of the whole year, out of all my classes, I only took 7 tests total. They just gave me all C's. Because no child left behind. See, you don't really have to do anything. They just pass you. Yeah, whole 12th grade, I didn't even go. I literally, I was barely there, ever. And I never took any tests. Maybe like I said, 7 tests, maybe, that whole year. And I had 7 full classes. No child, so you know what, no child, and that was back in the 80s, man. So you can imagine how bad it is today. You know what I mean? Yeah, they'll just pass you, yeah. So I was really taught to not live up to my potential and really just jerk around a lot. You don't have to have any accountability. You don't have to do anything. You know what I mean? And then the welfare came in with the kids. And then we had 1 kid, 2 kids, 3 kids. Now we got 5 of us. And I'm not no fool. We had federal welfare, so we didn't have state. Federal was a lot better, man. And then my dad was giving us like 20 grand a year. So that and the welfare, I was making like 25 grand a year, man. Back then, you know, tax free. That'd be like 30 grand with, you know, if you paid taxes. And that'd be like $100,000 today. But you know what I mean?